what we were hoping to do with this series of programs, a night at the museum. So the exhibit behind you is a brand new exhibit that talks about the 150th anniversary of Oak Park River Forest High School. So we have a lot of different things on display, but we're also doing some different programs like this that feature all sorts of topics, clubs, things related to the high school's history. And we've been very lucky, I've been very lucky to be working with these fantastic folks about the Sci-Fi Club. So that is what our program is going to be about tonight. I will let everybody introduce themselves in time, but if we're getting pretty close to being able to start the show.
Yeah.
Start the show.
Yes. Good evening, everybody. My name is Martha Sullivan. I was at OPRF from 2001 to 2005.
Math there, right?
Yeah. I was a member of the Science Fiction and Fantasy Club through all 4 years of high school. It was the only thing that I did in high school for the entire time that I was there. And I was the president my senior year, and I ran OpCon during my sophomore year. Sorry, I just am trying to decide if we want to introduce ourselves all right now.
Yes, good on.
It's up to you.
Yes.
It's your show.
Seated to my right is Sean Bernard.
Yes, thank you, Martha. My name is Sean Bernard. Yes. And I was in Sci-Fi Club also all 4 years. I was most active my junior and senior year, so it was 2003 to the end of 2005. Also, went to the OpCons and just really enjoyed going on many field trips. I have fond memories of going to Mitsuwa and going to Spam a lot as well. We want to see the performance, and it's just grateful that we could all be here tonight to commemorate the history of the Sci-Fi Club.
And seated to my left, I am honored to introduce Mr. Lee Darrow, who was the first president of the Sci-Fi Club in 1968.
Yeah, blame me. I attended Oak Park from 66 to 70. The club almost died in its first year. We have a story about that later. I have gone on in fandom to become part of an organization called the Dorsai Irregulars Limited. We are a 501c3 corporation that does convention services for fantasy and science fiction conventions. And it's led me to be able to meet a whole lot of people that I never thought I would ever get to meet. As in the Apollo 13 crew, the original cast of Star Trek, Robert Heinlein, become friends with Gordon R. Dixon, Kelly Frias, and a whole bunch of others. So more to follow on that.
I'm Bill Sullivan, class of 2002. I ran OpCon my junior and senior years and warned Martha not to, and she did anyway. Yeah.
I am Sean Logan, and I'm class of 05, along with the first Sean and Martha. I attended Sci-Fi Club every year, and even a couple times in junior high, no one got mad at me. So when I just decided to show up,
in retrospect, we should have.
I ran OpCon 1 year. I did Time Warp, our zine, at least 1 year, and I even ran the fake Sci-Fi Club, Anime Club.
Well, the Sci-Fi Club had to have its more specialized organs periodically. Lots of screening. Appreciating. Josh Logan, class of 97. I also thank you for not being the first person to say it was the only thing they did in high school. But Sci-Fi Club all 4 years. And I did the Time Warp for 1 year, and it was a great place to figure out how to not be a junior high kid anymore. So.
Hi, I'm Dwight Sora. I was at OPRF from 87 to 91. I was in Sci-Fi Club the whole way through. And I remember I edited Time Warp at least 1 year, and I am part of the group that started our time.
Yeah, we might have your Time Warps in a box or something.
Yeah.
So, as we said, club started in 1968 with Lee Darrow as the president and Mrs. Alice Merkner. Alice Merkner as the faculty. And at this point, I would love to hear a little bit from Mr. Darrow about how the club started. What kickstarted this group?
The club started based on the work of two other students, neither of whom got elected to office, and neither of whom have been named, and whose names I don't recall because they never showed up. But the club, we would meet on a biweekly basis, give or take, going over things like different books, different movies, things like that, without showing movies, of course. The cinema board did that. That's me at the podium up there, which gives you an idea of how badly time has ravaged me. And in our first year, we almost ceased to exist. As one of our big events that we were planning on doing to try and draw students in, we were going to have a hypnotist come in and do a show. Now, we were very careful about this, waivers for everybody. The hypnotist would be doing the induction in a different rooms and only using triggers to drop people into trance for the show. So there was no possibility of anybody getting what we call splash damage in the field. I'm a certified hypnotist now myself. One parent called the superintendent and complained. He called Mrs. Merkner into his office and said, "I'm shutting down the club." She said, "The hell you are." It led to a back and forth that got, shall we say, rather loud. And he backed down. But we had to cancel that particular show, and it cost me $25 out of my pocket. Fast forward to OpCon 3, I think it was. Was that the first one I did?
I saw you there.
Yeah. I got paid the princely sum of $25 for doing my hypnosis show there, so I got paid it. Took a while, but I win.
One of the things that is so interesting to me about that story is that during the research that we did for this presentation, going through all of these yearbooks, you see mention of all of these clubs like the Close-Up Magic Club and the Military Gaming Club, which don't exist anymore. And I think it's really striking that even through some rocky beginnings, the Sci-Fi Club continues to exist from its origin until today.
Fans are tenacious.
They certainly are. Yes, here is Alice Merkner, our founding faculty member, and it sounds like stalwart defender. So
yes, absolutely. I mean, she literally, from the reports that I got from other people that worked in the superintendent's office, she risked her job to stand up for us, saying, "You are not canceling a class or a group, an organization that's getting kids to read. This will not happen. If you do, I will take it to the press." And he backed down. What he didn't know was my dad worked for the Chicago American newspaper at the time.
I'm sorry, what was his objection to the
That one parent called and complained about the hypnotist doing a show. They felt it was inappropriate or some weird objection that I never understood. Oh, I'm sorry. I should have made that clearer. I appreciate the question. But we persevered.
Are we open to questions or do we do a presentation?
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, so what was it about that time that led to the formation of the sci-fi and science fiction? Was there some?
Among other things, Star Trek.
Those are critical maths.
Straightforward Star Trek. I gotta do it. And later on, Doctor Who.
Oh, yeah.
I now have my nerd card punched. Seriously, the explosion of science fiction in the mid to late '60s was, I think, pivotal. In 1966, the first World Science Fiction Convention was held here in Chicago. So, 2 years later, we showed up. And unfortunately, not any of us had any lean into what would be called mainstream fandom now. We didn't know about Locus, which was a magazine that was published that listed all the conventions in the United States, science fiction conventions. If we'd known about that, we would have been a lot more active. But as it was, we did what we could, and we persevered.
Well, and something that you see in the descriptions of the club, especially going back to the first decade or so, is that the things that get highlighted as to discussion points and subjects in the club meetings are tend to be movies and books. That sort of evolves as the club evolves, but certainly was part of the genesis for those early club meetings, is that it was a place for people to get together to talk about stuff that they were interested in, that people weren't really making space for that in other places.
I mean, back in those days, science fiction was funny hat. It was propeller beanie and nerds. It was not cool. Cool didn't happen until pretty much Star Wars. Even then,
I was going to say, I don't know that you could have accused any of us at the table of being cool when we were in high school.
I would make a joke, but there's pictures of me later in this to prove otherwise.
It's things I drew later.
So in 1979, we have an interesting little line in here that says the Science Fiction Club was in existence for about 3 years, which caused some confusion for us as we were doing our research on the club. But also points out that Miss Sally Frostick became the club sponsor at some point, and adding radio play to their rotating cast of interests. Um,
Good.
yes.
Was that listening or making their own beer?
It
Sounds like they made
says
one.
they had a radio play on station WOPA. But also, it points out that creation has always been a big part of what we did in the club, was making things whatever format that looks like.
Hitting each other with them.
Sometimes hitting each other with them. Here we have a lot of really great 70s haircuts. Something that became really clear to me reading through the yearbooks and also some of the press releases that we'll show later in the slideshow is this emphasis on the fact that the club was for people who had weird interests, but that there was room there for everyone that had a weird interest. So no matter what you were into, there was room for you at the club, which I think is part of what attracted all of us to the group every year.
That was, I think, a big part of how things sort of evolved. Like when I was going to that thing that you go to before you're a freshman, that's where they have booths for all the clubs. There was a sci-fi club booth. Me and a friend of mine went to check it out because we're big nerds. But we were less literary, more wargaming. And we're sort of like, so do people play games there? And they're just like, yes, we do everything. Come to the club, we do things.
And that junior high exhibition of clubs is how I invited myself to Sci-Fi Club early. Well, can I come? Sure. Okay.
I would have been there. I somehow didn't know that you were not a high school student.
You wouldn't have been the first though, because I definitely remember someone's siblings.
It's only a couple times.
Yeah.
Too much of an introvert to have done that much.
So in 1986 was sort of a watershed moment in the club, at least for many of us sitting here, because it's the year that Sandra Price took over as the faculty club supervisor. She was the faculty sponsor of the club from 1986 until 2003, when she retired at the high school, and was the supervisor for most of the time for most of us sitting here at the table. She was... I think she was a history teacher. I never had the privilege of having her in class, but she was a truly wonderful woman that took no nonsense and made everybody who walked through her door feel welcome. Miss Price passed away in 2009 from pancreatic cancer, and I think we all felt that.
I didn't know that.
I recall speaking with her at the Christmas party at our house when you were Martha. college. The thing that really struck me talking to Ms. Price was how very important it was to her to include everyone. She was charming, a charming and kind person. I was really struck by that just in the short time that
And she loved all you guys.
she really did.
It was also very important to her in retrospect to that we had the power in the club. Like as it says in this excerpt here, that she really saw herself as a facilitator for us to do our own thing. Dwight, did you have?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because I came in on 87, so she was definitely established then. And, I never remember her saying no to any idea. I mean, like when we first sort of like, oh, we're going to do a 1 day convention. And I think it was just like, okay, and she wasn't like I think, I don't remember if she was like a really big science fiction fan, but she was so supportive of
Well, and she also wasn't going to do it. Like when I ran the con, she was like, "Here's this folder of stuff from previous people who've run the show. You should probably use this." And apart from the occasional, this is the deadline, like you need to get the programs done to get to the print shop by this stage, or it's not going to happen. Just have 2 years in a row, I ended up in her office on Easter, getting the program done. It was very much like, all right, you're the dummy that got yourself into this. Now you're running a show. I'm not running a show. You're running a show.
and I feel like it wasn't until like as an adult I really kind of understood how wonderful it was to have her and what her influence was in the club, because I actually have some very clear memories of I have a clear memory of a very bad week where one of our gatherings meetings, let's just say, devolved into bad, I guess what today would be considered bad fan politics, and she literally stopped it dead, sat us down and made us talk it out, which I think that's amazing now. I didn't like as a kid, it was just kind of like, oh, okay, I guess something went wrong, don't quite understand it. But now I'm like, oh no, she was a great, great teacher to guide us.
I know we have some former club members in the audience. I wondered if anybody else had any Sandy Price recollections they might want to share at this moment.
Don't ever jump at once.
If not, that's okay. Going off book a little bit
I
there.
mean, it's not much of one, but like she definitely had a lot of trust in us to do the dumb stuff we did, and she even, because I had no school spirit, let me just not go to the spirit rallies and just sit in her classroom by myself unsupervised and just read. I was very much obviously a troublemaker.
I'd like to say that she was a saint for how many Fridays she gave up.
Frequently significantly later than what was on the schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know what that club would have been like if it wasn't the jumping off point for the weekends for everybody involved. So there's that, and just preparing for this tonight. If she hadn't been saving all of that stuff, Banker's box is full of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
She's the only one that had any records that made it to this building. So, like her diligent record keeping on that front is definitely something that stood out against all the others.
I have very fond memories of her inviting me to lecture to the group, not outside of OpCon, just coming to a meeting, and how very gracious she was in that regard, and how supportive. I could see how supportive she was of the club. It was, yeah, it's remarkable to see an educator do that and to give so much of themselves. And enough said. Here's to you.
So now this brings us to our next major timeline moment for the club, which is the very first year that OpCon was held. OpCon is a one-day science fiction convention hosted entirely by the club with minimal adult facilitation.
Supervision.
But it is a full-on convention. We have vendors, performers, events. It is Another one of those things where looking back on it is kind of amazing that we could pull off as teenagers. And Dwight was on the very first OpCon team.
So what is kind of lost to memory was we actually did another con the year before Op. It was the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
We called it Wrath of Con because we didn't think anything all. So it was Wrath of Con. For some reason, no materials on that are safe. Because I mean, it was very bare bones. We didn't have T-shirts. We didn't have I think we had a couple of gaming tables. I think we literally were like, who can we have to talk? I think we like dragooned like one of the English teachers and one of the science teachers. Like, you talk about science and you talk about something.
We have science, we have fiction.
It was kind of like from that you're like, we should do better. And then so I clearly remember that cover was made by my friend Matt Braithwaite on his Mac. I'm sitting there drawing those lines, each like literally sitting there for hours in his room, and I thought it was amazing time. And then so I guess I realize actually I was there for 3. I was there for Wrath of Khan in '89, OpCon, and then OpCon, I guess OpCon 2, which would have been '91, my last year of school. Which we actually got OpCon '91. I don't know if you have any records of it. That was an interesting year because in 1990, that one, we attracted the attention of people who were organizing because the World Science Fiction Fantasy Convention was held in Chicago in '91.
Mm-hmm.
And so the host organization, people here in Chicago, they saw us, I don't know, in the Wednesday Journal or the Forest Leaves, so they helped us out for the last one, and we got what did we get? We got 2 authors. One of them was a Dragonlance writer. I can't remember who it was. And then the big one we got was Robert Shea, co-author of the Illuminatus trilogy.
Oh wow!
While he was still alive, who came and spoke to us, and that was like, just like we just couldn't believe we got him, and he was so great to just come in and talk about his book to a bunch of kids, And it was weird coincidence because like I don't know how much younger folks know about those books today, but like for some reason they were kind of hot during that '87 to '9. A lot of us were just, it became like the book for a while, like we all traded, like, you gotta read this Illuminatus. And we kind of like could divide into camps because like, if you loved it, you were like, or you threw it against the wall. But we got him to speak. And then 2 of us, because of that connection, we ended up working the author's room at the WorldCon that year. So 2 of us got a hotel room after we graduated and got to, I think we were mostly carrying Cokes and hadn't fully climbed on it.
Yeah, you were, and I was performing. I was performing there, so I was doing the hypnosis show there.
Okay.
So
Yeah, so here we have the convention program for that very first event. What was the kind of inspiration for you guys hosting your own con? Like whose idea was it?
I literally don't remember whose idea was it. We had we had a very dedicated group that like always went out. I wasn't really a gamer, but we had a group that was always going to Gen Con. Like it was a pilgrimage every year. And then there was like some of us who would go to what was the company? I know it's Creation
Creation Con.
Creation Con. Yeah. They would do Star Trek and Doctor Who conventions. Some of us were very like regular to those. And at some point we were all talking like, what if we do it on our own? And like, can we do it on our own? Like, sure,
Why not?
Yeah, why not? And we really like I don't know what it's like today. Like, now they have the internet. Didn't really have that, so we really like this little thing off on our own.
And it worked.
So here we have a little press release for the convention. I believe.
This is in Trapeze, right?
Yes. Yeah, highlighting. Yeah, and according to the club secretary, Junior Dwight Sora, this diversity may also cause a few problems. Role players tend to be enthusiastic. Well, the readers are more low key.
Yeah, there was definitely a thing that yes, I remember a lot of comments that the gaming people just very loud and passionate.
But the point was that at OpCon there was room for
Yes.
everybody. And now, oh no, oh yes, and now we have a little gift for everybody.
No one's excited. The internet didn't.
You've been had.
The Voice from the Stars is inviting you to attend at OpCon 91. Special gathering of science fiction and fantasy. Oak Park in Riverport High School on Saturday, April 20th. Hello, I'm Dwayne Sawyer, president of the Oak Park in Riverport High School Science Fiction and Fantasy Club. OpCon is our second annual mini convention. Here are some of the exciting activities we have in store for you.
Richard Nack.
Hope you can join us for OpCon 91, April 20th at Oak Park in Riverport High School. Here's how to register.
Phyllis Eisenstein, for those of you not familiar, is a member of First Fandom. She attended the first World Science Fiction Convention and has been involved in fandom for longer than I have by quite a bit. So, just FYI.
Yeah, she was one of the people that somewhere spotted previous convention and reached out to.
Highly supportive
Yeah.
of anything Fanish.
She was so nice, and she brought. Her husband came. Whole group of people came. They were very great. So that was recorded at it wasn't recorded up here. It was recorded at the College of DuPage. There's one of the kids in our club. His dad worked there, and
Todd's got a pretty good comp too.
yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, CloudCon's been going forever.
Yeah, that's probably important. So just to let you know, not boast. I work as an actor now, and yeah, looking at that horrifies me.
So that's not in your demo reel?
Where's that?
She SAG and SAG after her.
Where did that air? This promo.
So maybe we gave it to. Was it New Scene? Is that
Yeah,
what-
probably just New Scene.
Then we gave it to New Scene to air. I assume. There was no streaming channel for the Eisen Sense.
Yes, although somebody, as I said, somebody did put this on
Yeah,
YouTube,
cool,
so.
cool.
Somebody got it.
The Voice from the
No, no.
Stars.
What's that?
So this photo is OpCon prep from my freshman year. You can see on the left our very own Sean Logan.
So that would have been 02.
Yep. And then here is a photo of the con actually happening. These were the gaming tables going on during the event.
Did we figure out what year that was?
No, unfortunately. It must have been somewhere in the early aughts.
From the
Yeah, it would have been,
decorations. seemed
yeah, it
like-
would have been after 2002, because that's not where
Oh,
we set up the
Your
game
speaker
tables.
notes are saying 2001. So
I'm skeptical.
Yeah.
one of
That's
the
2000, I think.
very fun things that we were somehow allowed to do was create weapons out of PVC pipe and foam and then hit each other really hard with them.
That was mostly a forgiveness, not permission thing, I think.
Did at least one actual club meeting event.
Oh yeah, no, I know.
Per year.
No, that was how after when I came back after graduating, so we had made all these, and there was one that was mine. And I came back for OpCon, and they come up to me with a sword, and they say, "We broke your sword, but we made you a new one." And the one they came back with was colossal. Apparently, in these guys' memories, I was 8.5 feet tall and fought like an ogre, and I'm reasonably tall and could swing a PVC sword reasonably hard, but not giant, massive claymore style.
I'm pretty sure at one point somebody from the Society for Creative Anachronisms came to the club meeting and talked about it. And that was part of the justification.
Yeah, somehow
They definitely were there in OpCon like 4 or 5.
Yeah, we didn't have a connect to SCA. Like in the picture that we had up there, I'm in the background with a sword made of wood, which you should not hit people with.
No,
Because
broken hurt.
I had gotten involved with a historical, what's the acronym? Historical European martial arts thing through the Park District for a while, doing longsword. But yeah, it was like that. People going to Chinatown to get the super cheap, super painful boken. Um, and watching Star Wars so many times and thinking he knew how to sword fight.
Winding up with broken bones.
Yeah.
I mean,
That
let's
guy never
face it.
actually broke anything.
Miyamoto
I think
Musashi,
quite worked
Japan's
right.
Miyamoto Musashi, Japan's sword saint, the guy who fought 65 duels and never lost one, fought his last 12 duels with a wooden sword against live steel and won every one, including one with against a guy with a 6-foot long sword.
He also beat a guy to death with a whore.
This is why we were only interested with foam covered.
Yeah.
So, Lee, we have this wonderful photo of you and Mrs. Price, and I was wondering if you could help us identify that third person.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure. One of the problems with having ADD like I do is that I usually walk around to conventions wearing a button that says, "Hi, I don't remember your name either." I'm not sure.
I think that might be Charles Moisant. Does that ring a bell?
Yes, that's who it is. That's well done. Thank you. You saved my chance.
Graduated by my time, and he was a graduate, so he'd come back and hang out with us.
Yeah.
Which even back then there were teachers who had concerns about that, and a graduate come hang out with a bunch of kids.
If you want something really funny, that vest. I did a show 3 nights ago wearing that vest.
Like literally that vest, and like he gave it to you. Or?
No, he didn't give me that. That vest I happen to own.
Yeah, Lee performed at quite a few OpCons, including the one that I ran, which was the first time I got to see you perform, which was quite impressive.
Thank you. Very nice of you.
Oh boy.
Yes. So this is again from my freshman year and Bill's senior year doing OpCon prep. Funny hats were prominent.
Yeah, for us, the funny hats were like how you could recognize staff. There's another photo that a friend of mine had that we couldn't get a hold of because they're not on Facebook anymore, of me standing there in like a giant jester hat. Because every year it was like, yeah, what are the weird hats we're going to get to identify staff? And I think I just kept stacking hats because I ran the show that year.
Yes, the following year we had metallic plastic fedoras.
Oh,
I remember those. I remember those.
So yes,
I think that I requested for this to be in here because part of sci-fi is looking towards the future and technology, and this was actually like a watershed moment for some that were at this particular OpCon, because this was when the World Wide Web was in its infancy, networking protocols were chaos, and there weren't even really computer rooms other than some non-network Macs in the high school. But there was an entire computer gaming area where people were bringing their computers from home and doing direct connections in order to get the first taste of multiplayer gaming for a lot of the people there. And it got. I mean, it was going to be in the blood of Sci-Fi Club anyway, but this was a pretty significant time to be a young nerd.
What game were they playing?
There was the most popular one was a pirated copy of Warcraft that had somehow made it up from Champagne and had already
Somehow.
yeah, the person that like pulled it out of their pocket had a whole story of the genealogy of like, okay, so this guy got it to this person and who copied the disc to that person, and then from there on, this actually ended up driving many months of meetups after school where people would figure out who would be direct dialing between computers at home in order to play Warcraft or Doom or something like that. So, yeah, that was. It became much more pedestrian a few years later because people would just go up to the computer labs and run already networked games. But it was very organic
Yeah, 95 of them right before Doom was breaking college networks.
Maybe it was Wolfenstein then.
Well, because
Wolfenstein would have been big then.
yeah, Wolfenstein didn't do multiplayer. Doom did
No.
multiplayer, but it did multicast.
Hmm.
So you would start up if you started up a game on a really early LAN, it would send your game to everyone that was connected, which is great if you've got two computers plugged into each other. If you've plugged into your college network just broke.
Fair enough. Yeah, this was part of, I think, all direct connections, maybe 3 computers if
Yeah.
somebody brought some special hardware.
Yeah, this was direct wire.
Yep. And by
Yeah.
2001, we were bringing in multiple Xboxes so that people could play Halo.
Yeah. In addition to having the computer lab upstairs.
In addition to having, I meant specifically for OpCon.
Oh yeah.
And here we have one of our mentions of honored guest.
Oh my gosh. Yep, that was me.
Yeah. Do you know off the top of your head how many OpCons you guested for?
I think it's like at least 5. At least 5.
Yes, we do. We have a sampling of OpCon programs so that you can see all of our very, very good graphic design skills. And I believe we are now about to get into the history of Rhodey, our eyeball friend here, who, oh, not quite. Rhodey is the mascot of Sci-Fi Club, particularly of OpCon.
Looks like something Phil Folio did.
Definitely that kind of vibe.
Yeah, he came into Genesis. His creator was Robin Passavoy, and I believe we decided that probably meant. You're shaking your head. Am I wrong?
Oh, I don't think that she was in high school when, unless she was precocious ensign.
Robin
I'm
is
just-
very
I'm
precocious.
just reading the article here.
The Passavoys, the interesting thing about them is that they came to Oak Park High School because Dr. Passavoy took my class through Triton College's evening ed program in self-defense. And his comment was, I didn't buy a house, I bought a school district. Because he came through, I was teaching at Oak Park, up in the wrestling room, way up on the nosebleed section of the gym, and gave him up until the time he took his board certs for renal, gave him the most difficult exam he'd ever taken. I told him he had to come from up there down to the seats along the balcony there, and he could either come back all the way down to walk along the track and into the main building, or he could go through the back area with the locker rooms and down. And I told him that a multiple of my advanced students in karate would be there in civilian clothing, and they would either attack him or not, as the case may be. I yell, go! 20 minutes later, here comes Bob down the hallway. He gets to me, and I'm leaning in the doorway. Walks through and goes flat on his nose. He goes, that's the most grueling exam I've ever taken, and nobody even attacked me. And I looked at him and I said, that's because nobody's there. And he looked at me and he said, I understand. Your head is your worst enemy. And after he'd seen the class, he and his wife Ann came out here, looked at the high school and said, we're moving out here. They were living in Hyde Park at the time. Enough said. Bit of history.
Yeah, Rhodey has existed in many iterations. You can see him on the T-shirt for the con.
Something else. It's favorite.
It is. Yeah, Rhodey
Thanks, Rhodey.
Right.
is not always limited to having wheels. Sometimes he has wings. Sometimes he is an exercise ball.
He is frequently an exercise ball, and sometimes he has to be resurrected because the exercise ball does not hold tape well.
It's true.
Proof that science fiction fans commit circular reasoning on a regular basis.
Oh yeah, I wrote that one.
And now we are getting into the club's history with publications. This is an excerpt from a time warp from the 1980s, I believe, which I am including mostly as a curiosity to show you how it evolved. The club was creating their own magazines, their own compilations, anthologies, basically from the point that the club started. And we have editors from the Time Warp, which was a monthly,
Whenever
periodically
Weekly at
produced,
some point.
a periodically produced zine,
and eventually,
and eventually.
last minutely.
But yeah, it was entirely driven by student submissions. And I would love to hear more from the editors about what it actually took to create and put this thing out.
Well, I can say that before my time, I think there was a lot more informational content because I was amazed that looking at some previous versions of the Time Warp from my time, there was actually information that was useful in there about conventions that were coming or fan groups that could be joined via mail and things like that. But by the early 90s, it was very wildly free-form self-expression, solicited from members of the club, whether it's drawn art, collages, self-written things, just funny things you found online as you learned what Usenet was.
As far as this cover is concerned, graphic design is my passion. Yeah.
Yeah, so Sean and I we each did a year in there. There might have been some fallow times. We did have a cover. You've probably seen Smart Around Town from Joe Aberino, and he was at least a friend of the Sci-Fi Club in that he worked at the local game store, and we got him to draw one of the covers for the Time Warp. So I gave him a wild description, and he greatly exceeded my expectations.
Yeah, we asked him about that, about just doing this event, and he said, "No, I play football." Yeah,
Yeah,
club adjacent, but not actually in.
yeah.
However, we have learned that his 14-year-old nephew is currently in the club right now. So nerddom runs deep.
In my time, so the big thing it was in my time, not matrix printers. But I think I know that. So to this day, I'm a nerdy info hound, and during that period, I was obsessed with. Every day I would walk when I walked home from school because I lived over in Forest, so I would pass by the. Was it Croc and Brentanos in the apartment?
Yeah.
Is that what
Yep.
Yes, I would walk to the Croc and Brentanos. Then Barbara's. No, wait. All the magazines were Croc and Brentanos, so that's why I would go Starlog and Fangoria and all that stuff, and Cinema Fantastic. And then farther down was where Rick's One Stop Comics used to be when it was on Lake Street, and I would essentially steal as like I was a reporter as much information as I could, and then regurgitate it into the Time Warp. But like between 87 and 87 and 91, there was a lot happening for like sci-fi pop culture because we got Star Trek Next Generation debuted in 87. We got a new Doctor Who in 89. We got Sylvester McCoy in 89, which 2 years later they canceled the show, which was news. We had the Bat Craze in 1980.
89.
Nine.
Is it 89? Yeah. Dark Knight Returns comes out 86.
Which Bat Craze?
Yeah, sorry, the late
film.
80s Bat Craze, starting with Frank Miller, leading into Tim Burton.
Thank
So
you.
there's a lot of stuff for us to write about.
Because back in my day, we had the Bat Craze too, but it was Adam West and Burt Ward, and that was huge, absolutely huge. So
Mobius Theater was a group that performed for our club that I don't remember their performing, but I do remember that theater in and of itself was also a facet of the experience of the club. When I was a junior, I believe, we got to go see Spamalot perform downtown, which was great fun. And yeah, Mobius Theater is listed on a bunch of the OpCon programs as guest events for that. So we really were including just about any sort of aspect of geekery that you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, I remember Martha. We got like preview tickets to see Spam a lot. It wasn't actually officially open to the public yet. It was like a pre-show that we got, and I forgot who hooked us up with those
I
tickets.
think it was Linda.
And
So Linda Burns was the staff faculty member who took over after Sandy Price retired. And I believe that she was the person who
Yeah, she had some sort of connection to the theater stuff.
yeah.
It was cool seeing the preview because my mom ended up getting me tickets for it for my birthday, and they had a different song line.
Hmm.
So that was actually very exciting. That it was two not entirely the same experiences, but I would have loved it either way.
Hmm.
And it was like super impressive that we had Tim Curry was it the played the
Yeah, it was like original run.
that was so much fun because yeah, Monty Python was a big part of the club too. Remember, Holy Grail was screened and Flying Circus. Yeah.
I mean, it was a place of absurdity. So being able to embrace the Monty Python aspects was definitely crucial.
So it provided absurdiveness training.
Yes.
High schoolers.
Well, that did kind of end up being just like the general nerd shibboleth for clearly a very long stretch of years of like somebody saw it, who showed it to their little brother, who showed it to their little brother's friends, who showed it to their friends, and
But you also had Flying Circus on
Yep.
PBS all the
Yep.
time, and yeah.
Well, in the late '80s, we got because so during my period, we were all trading copies of Brazil and Vinicius Baron Munchausen on
yeah, it checks out.
VHS.
No
So
Time Bandits?
Time It,
No.
no, Time It, no,
Oh.
like no, I love Time It, but I remember like that had kind of fallen off the radar. I remember like throwing in a VHS player, and thank God everyone laughed. I mean,
Yes, coming to meetings with an open mind is crucial if you want to be a member of the Sci-Fi Fantasy Club.
I think it actually got coverage in the yearbook.
Oh yeah. I think we had a yearbook member in the club.
That seems to be the trick. We never
Yeah.
had one.
But if you look really close, I'm in this photo, I think. Probably. Somewhere.
I mean, if you're doing the yearbook, you're a nerd, so it's not much of a Venn diagram difference.
Yeah, but you're a more productive nerd rather than a
There you go.
consumptive nerd.
cult nerd mainstream.
Well, that explains a lot for me.
Full frontal nerdity.
Like that.
Back to that last remark. This is cool because this is a meeting in progress. This is a club meeting in progress. I think this is 2003, and some people that are in this room tonight are actually in this photo, and it just
It's
shows
2001.
2001. Thank you.
That's
So
it.
my freshman year, it's the timelessness of the club because many people are actually in this photo here tonight.
Yep, I think
Mark
this is. I
Racing.
was gonna say. I think this is me in the
Yes.
shadowy corner in the back.
I think that's
You,
Mark and
Sir Chris
Grayson's hand in the
Passavoy.
front row.
Yeah.
And Chris is right there.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And yes, looking for a club unlike any other. I think we can all safely agree that we were a pretty unique group.
Always were.
Hmm. Yes. And this is the year that I was the president, so I needed to shout out my own accomplishments here. And yeah, we wanted to include some photos of just club happenings. Does anybody have any questions at this point?
It's proof that we went outside.
We
We
did.
did occasionally touch grass.
We got sunshine, man.
Is this mothing? Can you talk about that?
That was probably Ultimate Frisbee.
Yep.
I don't know why we played that.
No,
I don't know
boffing.
why anyone plays that.
Boffing was the PVC pipe weapons wrapped in foam and then wrapped in duct tape.
But there weren't all these like adjacent activities because I remember one year coming back to a later OpCon, and there was a large. This will date it. There was a large chunk of kids to me, and they were all reenacting songs from Chicago. which does not sound sci-fi, but there was this weird musical theater folks, people like song, singing and dancing.
Everyone's a nerd about something,
Yeah,
and I think the Sci-Fi Fantasy Club really welcomed all of it. Josh?
This is, club adjacent. So this was, I think, 92, and we'd gather on Saturday mornings. Also doing the sword fighting, and eagle-eyed Wednesday Journal reporter decided to interview us about what the hell we were doing, and I am.
Is this you?
Yes, that's me back there. I see Phil Henning. I see two Schwartzes, and I can't tell in the back left.
Yeah, the caption says Mark Schwartz, Tom Henning, Dave Schwartz, Phil Henning, and Joshua Logan.
So, are those the younger brothers of Mark Henning?
Yes.
Mark Henning was my
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I mean, there were so many.
I get they were.
And I talked about absurdity and being able to embrace that, and sometimes a yearbook photographer happens to come by, and well, we're filming our own skits then, and I think that was supposed to be the view screen that I was going to open up with the pull string, and why not just bring whatever masks that you had laying around at home also.
I was going to say, I'm very curious about this skull mask situation.
Well, it's obvious. They were having a skull session.
Well, I assumed it says Josh Logan waits for his scene during the filming of a movie that the club was making. So my assumption was that the skull mask had something to do with that movie.
I think that I was going to appear on the view screen. So I would open it up and I would be framed by it, which was the window.
Got it.
Yeah. You got to just express yourself in all kinds of fun ways.
Josh Logan also got to be quoted on the back of one of the OpCon shirts. The front of the OpCon shirts always feature a roadie, and the back always features a piece of art and a quote. The art was frequently or always generated by a club member, and the quotes came from everywhere.
We're rarely related.
And were rarely had anything to do with
This was just a combination of two catchphrases for beverages that we liked: Jolt Cola and chocolate mousse. So yeah.
So as I said, the club had been producing publications since its inception, practically. Odd Junctions was the first one, which I believe transformed later into not Time Warp, Dimensions. I enjoyed this headline, which was why I wanted to include it. Science fiction buffs have this image. Even William Shatner, one of the original Star Trek heavenly bodies, has spoofed on television their tendency towards giddy fantasizing by telling them to get a life. Many of them have a life full of creative contributions to the adult world. I think...
Not all, just many.
But what we all did have in common was that Sci-Fi Club gave us a place where we could be at home with all of the many and varied things that we were very deeply into. And we were into them. It was a valuable place for me because I didn't have to be embarrassed about all of the things that I was passionate about. And I'm grateful that I had that experience during high school. This is my last slide. So
Nerds start talking.
Say it out, say it loud. I'm a nerd and I'm proud. Plain and simple.
But yeah, at this point, I'd love to open it up to the rest of the floor if anybody else has club experiences they'd like to share, or if anybody has any questions for the panel. Yes.
Just a memory that really sticks with me, and I tell to people sometimes to try and give it an image of, because now it's like being a nerd in school. It's hard to imagine that it used to be that way. That when we were getting ready for OpCon, I don't remember which year it was, but we would go to Denny's like fairly early in the morning, like 5 or 6 in the morning, something beforehand, and showing up. Some people partially or more fully in costume, wearing like a kimono or some, like metal shoulder pads. And one year we went there, and the Denny's was closed. The 24-hour establishment was closed. I recall note saying it was closed. It's written on a napkin, a marker, like take the front door, which is locked, and I suppose somebody tipped them off, and a bunch of nerds are coming. They didn't know to like things there. So
I never went to Denny's, but I remember the disappointment,
Yeah, the one year
the morale damage.
the one year I went before the con was the first year that I ran it, and I had been up the entire night beforehand, making sure the con wasn't going to fail, and also finishing prep for the LARP that I was running, in addition to running the show, which is very stupid. Don't do that. And like having someone ring my doorbell after being explicitly told absolutely do not ring the doorbell. We're showing up at my house at like 6 o'clock on a Saturday, and I did not want them to wake up the rest of my family, and just like dragging myself out the front door to go get breakfast.
Well, thank you everybody so much for coming. We had a ton of fun putting this together and just a lot of fun sharing our stories and talking about this thing that was so very, very special to us. So thank you for giving us your time and attention tonight.
There's an enormous amount of material, so if there's some way that people can access that, if they want to find out more stuff.
So we are the whole high school archives, and as somebody said here, thanks to Susan Price especially, Sci-Fi Club for some reason has a lot of archives. So if anybody is interested, especially photos, especially
She truly kept everything.
your era, I know like early 2000s, there are a lot of photos if people want to come and see those. And again, the exhibit behind you is all about the high school history in general, so which will be up through 2025. So you got some time to come in and see things. Yeah, and any other questions you could ask me. I want to thank our panelists, especially, and all of the time and work that has gone into this program. So thank you for sharing your stories and your history here.
So so as the parent of a child, sci-fi fan, no, I just remember having discussions with my about junior high and how horrible junior high was just checking. And how don't worry, when you get to high school, OPRF is huge, there will be something for you. And thank God. You know, so it was wonderful because there were things, it was the sci-fi club, there was, Japanese got to meet when Sensei Shigeki joined. There were, in fact, things, or at least for my kids, they could find that niche and sci-fi club was one of those things, and it's great.
I mean, something that never made sense to me in pop culture is just people hating high school, and I thought it was fine. I never got bullied, no matter, even though if I was kind of an idiot. But it's just like no. Okay, being dragged up the stairs by my feet is aside.
Yeah, but that was like last weekend.
That's Big Brother stuff. So it's but like aside from that, like I had problems in like grade school. I barely remember middle school, but it was a great and welcoming experience to have Sci-Fi Club being a dumb weirdo and hanging out with other weirdos that may or may not have been dumb.
Well, I think that speaks to that board right there. Like, we went to a big school with a lot of different people in it. I think a lot of people saying, like, well, I was a nerd and I hated high school, went to smaller schools. They didn't have the space for that kind of experience.
Right.
We
It's weren't even jerks.
Other questions?
In terms of planning cons, it was so much invested that my kids actually do students to do those, which I find really impressive.
We have a
I think it's kind of tied to what some of you are saying, but I'd be curious to know, looking back, how do you think being in Afghan or whatever helped you in your life as you went forward?
It gave me, and I say this completely seriously, it gave me something to put on my resume for the first jobs that I was looking for. Because having run the convention, I could say that, like, I put on this huge thing. That stayed on my resume through college. It also made me much less self-conscious than I had been, as my mother said. Junior high was a very hard time for me, and I was coming from a place where I had sort of been taught to be embarrassed by the things that I was passionate about, and then suddenly I didn't have to be. And being able to feel that freedom is something that I've carried with me. I now am a librarian and I work primarily with teenagers, and being able to be totally unself-conscious about the stuff that I'm passionate about and being able to be that for the stuff that they're passionate about has made it really easy for me to form that kind of rapport with my kids at the library.
Minor commercial issue. For those of you who have aged out of this club, the weekend of the 10th and 11th and 12th at the Doubletree in Oak Brook is WindyCon. This is a nonprofit science fiction convention. I'll be appearing there. I'll be doing 2 shows and a panel. And windycon.org for the website. So take a look. Hope to see you there. If we do, great. And if not, enjoy anyway. Thank you.
How you involved with activity? What's your hearing of that?
Well, a lot of science fiction revolves around psi phenomenon of one type or another, whether it's psychic phenomenon, mind control, whatever. And it sort of relates. People tend to put it in the same general box. And it was also in the original when we were going to have Joan Brandon come in and do her show. The idea was it was something different, completely different, and it would be something that would draw a lot of people. Because we did have a lot of people that wanted to go. And that was the other reason I think that we got saved as a club. So there's that.
I want to emphasize something that Martha said. Is we, especially in your era of the club, it seems like this was a catch-all. Like there was magician read, there was probably your time learning how to hypnotize people. There are people playing card games and all different sorts of things.
Not so much cards, because cards were outlawed in the school at that time. Oh yeah. Oh, believe
They
it.
still were when we were there.
University.
I got yelled at for playing the Lord of the Rings card game in the library after finals one year
The
because
university back when I went to school was very, very different than it is today.
In the 90s, we got to play Hours of Magic every day.
Female students,
places, classes, training for it and everything.
Before school at all.
female students were required to wear skirts. Any member of the staff could have them do a kneel check, meaning they would have to kneel on the floor, and if the hem of the skirt didn't hit the floor, they go home. You do that these days, and it's a multi-million-dollar lawsuit that you'll win. No blue jeans. Shirts had to have collars and cuffs. Get the idea? No gym shoes.
I don't think any of us here passed the dress code for that period.
No,
You're wearing pants, aren't you?
No,
I wouldn't. No collars.
Yeah. My shirt has no
my
cuffs.
skirt might be too short.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. In my study hall, I went to the library cafe, and I played Magic there. I think often with Ivan.
Yeah.
And almost every day, the security guard came by and said, "Put them up," and we did it.
Yeah, we got in trouble for.
Like she's like, fine, you're not gambling.
Yeah, we played D&D in the lunchroom and got yelled at for dice, and yeah, for playing collectible card games in the library, we got in trouble because we might have been gambling over Frodo.
So
Will
the
he
gambling is
get some
opening
more
the,
When he
this
gets there,
time?
yeah,
the real gambling is opening the
yeah,
past
for
five.
sure.
So I've this is very funny. I'm right down the street here because I literally 2 weeks ago I started teaching Japanese at OPRF. If anybody's connected to the school currently, Carol Kimmel, who was a long-time teacher, she passed away, and she was one of the other Japanese teachers that was brought into replacement. It's been kind of interesting because it's like, I'm seeing all these like female students walking around with bare midriffs, which apparently I guess is allowed now. I'm just kind of like puzzled by this, but also like still was allowed to take over the class. It's like my first reaction was like, do I like how do I relate to teenagers today? I don't know what to talk about. Like, and then within like a week or two of class, like the biggest jock-looking guys, they all trade Pokemon cards and can sing anime theme songs. I was like, wow, like everything I thought was like not allowed a long time ago. So it's all like I guess mainstream. I guess.
Yeah.
Yep, it's gone mainstream.
Yeah.
Gotta dig deep for stuff that's not normalized.
Yeah.
Well, just remember, in statistics, normal is 90 degrees away from whatever you're talking about. So, or is that just mean? Sorry.
Think your daughter's been quite participant.
My 11-year-old, if she can make time for it, she has too many after school activities. Thanks, Mike.
To wait. But I think she'll do a good job.
Gotta get another Logan running time more.
Correct.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank
Thank you so
Thank you.